So I managed to get in on yet another Great Eastern Cutlery release. This is the 39 Horse Rancher in linen blue micarta, which I think looks pretty good. Although it's not necessarily what I prefer the most from traditional pocket knives. Typically, I like jigged bone or wood is typically what I like. But my Carta is good too. Um, it usually looks pretty good, and it does change over time as it soaks up your hand oils and everything else. So I like my Carta as well, but typically I prefer jig bone or wood. That being said, this is the 39 pattern, which is a similar size to the 15, and it kind of has a little bit of like a curve to the handle. It's very similar to like the handle shape of like the Sheffield Barlows, where they kind of swell out at the bottom and curve down a little bit. Um, they released a version of this, which I also have, that was like the Old English, the Sheffield Jack, or something like that. And it was a spear blade and a pen blade. And that's a really good knife. I just haven't really carried mine much because I have so many other knives that I just like more, I guess. Um, I forget what this shield's called. Maybe the Federal Shield or something. The shield. It looks like a shield. But yeah, the blue linen micarta. The camera's not going to do it the best justice, but it looks really good. You can see there, kind of looks a little bit like blue jeans. You got your darker blues, lighter blues in there. It looks really good, I will say. And then you got your clip blade here, which is a fairly aggressive clip blade, which I like. Very pointy, very aggressive looking. So I really like that. Usually, I'm not one to pick on blade etches because I think they're kind of cool. Usually, because it's kind of like a traditional knife thing to me. Like if you look in old catalogs and stuff, a lot of those knives did have blade etches. I don't really care much for this etch. But the good thing about blade etches is if you use your knife, they'll eventually go away, whether that's through patina or just use. Eventually, the blade edge will wear off of there, and it won't be there anymore. So I am planning on carrying this knife and everything. So I'm assuming that probably won't be there for super long, although it'll be there for a little while. I'm just not a huge. I'm not a huge fan of this particular etch. I don't think it looks very vintage. It doesn't look like something that would have been on an old pocket knife, at least in my mind. Um, but it is what it is. Really like the clip blade, really aggressive. It's got some swedging up here and everything. Really beautiful clip blade. I like a good clip blade if it's gonna be a clip blade. Um, I think my favorite blade shape is a spear blade. It changes. It has changed over the years. Um, I think originally my favorite blade shape probably would have been a clip point, and then I liked like the sheep's foot for a little bit, and then I decided that the sheep's foot wasn't super practical, and I started liking spear blades because I feel like they're the most like useful all around blade shape. But the clip point's really good too. You can still cut pretty much whatever you need to cut. And I do actually like sheep foot blades. But I think, like I said, I think my favorite blade shape is probably a spear point. But I do appreciate a good aggressive when it's like this, especially looking clip blade. Like this is a very good looking clip blade. It's it's a knife's around a 15 size. And it's a bit of a trapper, so it's like a 15 sized trapper, but with way better shaped blades than like a case trapper. But the clip blade is about 2 and 3/4 inches long, with a cutting edge of around a little under 2.5. We'll call it 2 and 3/8, I guess, long. So fairly small little blade there. Good usable size and everything. Knife in general is a good usable size. You can get 4 fingers on it. Feels good in your hand. Like I said before, it's about the same size as the 15 pattern, which is what I think a lot of people consider to be just about the perfect pocket knife size. And then for your secondary blade here, which is in front of the pen and in front of the clip blade, you have a Spay blade. Now, typically, I'm not a huge fan of Spay blades, but that's because typically you're talking about what is like a traditional Spay blade, like the one that Case puts on their knives, or I have a Baron Son Stockman right here, or like this shape. This one's almost like a spear point, honestly. That's not a good example. Does this Case knife have a spear blade or a Spay blade on it? Yeah, there we go. So this Spay blade shape here is different than this Spay blade shape. Um, so I like this one a lot more because it's a lot more like a almost like a drop point or like a Skinner blade, whatever you want to call it, but with just a little bit of a bit at the top where it's not sharp. Um, so I prefer Great Eastern Cutlery's Spay blades usually. On the jumbo trappers, I really like those Spay blades, and I think it's for a similar like thing. On a lot of Spay blades, the top part meets the shop. The part here where it comes down meets the sharp part of the blade about halfway on the blade, and it's usually a lot less like it's more abrupt. Like there's a lot less belly to it, and it's like more. I'm gonna have to get this knife out again. It's more abrupt of a turn up, and there's less belly. Um, it's just not as attractive of a blade shape, in my opinion. But I really like Great Eastern Cutlery's Spay blades because I think they do a really good job on them as far as making it, still a useful blade shape, but still having, a traditional, type of blade shape to it, but being more useful than like Case's Spay blade. And then you got this swedge up here. It looks really good. I really like I said, I really like Great Eastern Cutlery's Spay blades. I think they do a really good job on them. They're very useful. Pattern number 39. That's the pattern. One, I believe, is the clip shape. Two for two blades, and then 24 for 2024, the year it was produced. Um, but yeah, so I got lucky on a Collector Knives release. Somebody posted it on the Facebook page that I'm a part of, our Facebook group that I'm a part of, and I just so happened to see it in time and get over there and get one, which is good because I did kind of want one of these. I skipped out on the 39 at the Rendezvous because they didn't have any like regular 39s. I really wanted the beaver tail one with the jigged wood and everything because I like that look. And I have another beaver tail knife. I have a 97 beaver tail. Um, but I really wanted that one. They didn't seem to have any in the factory store unless I missed them. They had a couple acrylics, which I didn't really care for, and it looks like somebody got the pair of them or a pair of them and is like super stoked about it. So I'm happy to see that. And then the rendezvous knife this year was the 39 with camel bone or giraffe bone. I think it was giraffe bone. Some sort of exotic bone, and they were all sorts of different colors and everything. And some of them were really cool looking. Somebody got one that was like purple. Some of them were almost black. They were all sorts of different kinds of dye, pretty much. So those were cool. But I don't really. I didn't want one bad enough to not get the other two knives that I got. So because I wanted the Titiute version of this knife. I wanted the Titiute version, but I wanted the beaver tail. But the blue micarta is good too. Um, but a lot of people got those giraffe bone ones at the Rendezvous. I believe they were Northfields, so they have like long pulls and stuff, which is cool. But typically, I prefer the Titiute knife just because I like a satin blade more than the high polished blades, at least typically. Because it's easier to take pictures of and film, and I just like the look of a satin blade as well. But yeah, so I ended up getting my hands on a Titiute 39. It's not necessarily the one that I wanted, but it was the one that was available, and I think I will like it just fine. And I'm planning on carrying it tomorrow, so we'll see if I do that or not. But yeah, good little knife, really well made. Obviously, Great Eastern Cutlery just makes really good knives. Really no gapping or anything. None of these blades had blade play when I checked earlier. Yeah. Centering, I think it was a little off on one of these blades. Yeah, so the Spay blade I think is slightly off to this side, but not enough to like matter. Um, so yeah, but brass pins, brass liners, nickel silver bolster and shield, 1095 carbon steel blades, and carbon steel back springs. So, really nice little knife. And it's a really good little size for what it is, and it's pretty much a trapper. It's just not your traditional trapper. It's pretty much what it is. So they released those 15 trappers years ago, and seeing pictures of those, they're really cool. uh, this is probably as close as I'm ever going to get to one of those 15 trappers unless they release them again. So I'm pretty happy to have one of these. I like the blade combination on this. A really well shaped clip blade and Great Eastern Cutlery's awesome Spay blade. Um, and yeah, overall, I'm just really happy with the knife. It's got really good action, pretty much like you come to expect with Great Eastern Cutlery. We can look at the tube here. Nothing super special. It's got like a horse farm on it. So yeah, that's cool. And then right here's the pin it came with. I think one of the last knives I got didn't come with a pin. Oh, neither of the two knives that I got at the Rendezvous came with a pin, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, you get a little hat pin or whatever. Eventually, I need to take apart my little pin display and put in a bunch of pins that I've gotten since then. But anyway, cool little knife. Super, I think, useful blade combination and everything. And just really well made, like you've pretty much come to expect from Great Eastern Cutlery. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video on the 39 Horse Rancher. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you have a good day.